Hello, this is Dave in the shop. I love my drill press. It's a great Craftsman drill press. I've had it for a long time. It is the most used tool in the shop. The only problem is every time I use it, it creates a mess. Well, part of the problem is all my parts and pieces, my drill bits, and my chuck key and my sanding disc and all set down on the table below the drill press. And so every time I use it, all of the shavings coming off the drill press end up making a mess, all mixed in with all the drill bits and the sanding disc and the chuck key. And then I always have to separate all that stuff up for cleanup. So today we're going to build a shelf that's going to hold all of the parts and pieces. And then that's going to make the cleanup so much easier. Stay tuned. Let's go build a shelf. Here's the section of wall right next to the drill press where we're going to mount our shelf. It's about 14 inches wide. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a French Cleat method to hang the shelf. Okay, this is going to be a demonstration of the French Cleat, how it works. So what I've done is I've cut a couple of little pieces here that I'll use. This will be the cleat. So one piece mounted to the wall, and one piece mounted to the whatever it is you're hanging. In this case, it's going to be just this little piece. So this represents the wall. So I'm going to use a little bit of the super glue. All right, we'll put a little glue on the part. And we'll use the spray to help speed the process up. We'll just okay, so that's mounted. Now what we'll do is we'll mount our second piece on here. So it goes like this. Could be, anywhere along here. So let's just put a little strip of glue. All right. And we're going to take this, give it a little spray. And then press and hold. And then we can see how the French Cleat works. Boom. Super nice, super strong. So if you were doing this piece would be screwed into the wall. If it's carrying a heavy load, then screw it into the studs in the wall. And then, of course, depending on what you're doing here, then screw in glue and screw this into the object. But that's the French Cleat. It's pretty cool. It's universal. You can use this. You can make long runs of this, and then all your different things that you want to hang all have the second half of the cleat, and you can slide things around, put them where you want them. To make the pieces for the French Cleat, we're first going to set up the saw to cut or to rip 45-degree angle on our piece of wood. I've set this up with a little feather board to help make holding the piece in place against the rip fence a lot easier. So we'll rip this down. We're ripping it down at the midpoint, so we should end up with two equal pieces that have a 45-degree angle cut on them. Here's what the two pieces look like. They're basically identical with a 45-degree angle on them. Next step is to cut these to length, and we measured 14 inches for our wall area, And so we're going to head and just make cleats that are that full 14 inches. So we'll mark those and then cut those on the chop saw. The next step is to mark where we're going to drill the holes, so that once we've built the shelf, we can screw the bottom cleat to the wall and the top cleat to the shelf. We'll drill our holes. This is with a countersink bit. That way the top of the screw will not stick out and interfere with the wall. Now we're ready to go ahead and mount the wall portion of the cleat onto our wall. We'll get our Dremel tools out of the way. And then we'll take a measurement where we want the shelf cleat to be. So that's about 16 inches above the height of the table. And then we'll go ahead and mark the second, since we're going to build 2 of these. This section of wall is a load-bearing section, and so it's got 2x4 studs tripled up on each side of this. So we have to drill it. We're drilling through the masonite pegboard and then on into the stud to be able to accept our screw. Then we'll screw the one side in. Go ahead and bring that fairly snug, and then we can use our level to level out the shelf. And then what we'll do is drill our next hole, and then we'll put the screw in it to secure that part of the cleat to the wall. And just a quick test so you can see how the upper part of the cleat matches up to the lower part of the cleat. Now we'll do the same thing for the second cleat. We'll drill our pilot holes, and then we'll put our screw in, then level it, and then put our pilot hole for the second screw, and then put that screw in. And then we have both our cleats mounted on the wall, ready for use. To build this shelf project, I had previously selected some scrap material from a previous project, and just enough for us to cut our shelf pieces. So we're going to rip down these pieces. For the bottom part of the shelf, we're going to rip it down to 8 inches wide, and for the upper back part of the shelf, we're going to rip our material down to 5 inches wide. So now that we've got our pieces ripped to width, we're going to set them all to 14-inch length. So we'll measure and mark those pieces, and then we'll move those over to the chop saw, and we will line them up and then trim them down to size. Now the next step is to mark where the front and the back piece are going to be joined together. And as you can see, the way I've got it set, I'm using a piece of scrap as a gauge to make these markings. But we're going to attach the top shelf offset from the back, essentially 3/4 of an inch the width of the material. And this is going to work as a spacer, being the same width as the cleat on the wall. So we drill it where the two are going to join together. We're using a countersunk drill bit. Now, to aid in the construction of this, we're going to use the edge of the table saw as a 90-degree gauge. So we clamp our back piece to the table saw, put our glue on it, and then line up with the marks. And then we're drilling our pilot holes and then inserting our screws, making sure that the back piece is aligned with the shelf piece according to the guidelines that we drew. Next, we're going to prepare to mount the cleat to the back of the shelf unit. So we'll line that up and then clamp it in place. Next, we're going to make our marks where we want the screws to go that are going to hold the cleat in place. So then we'll mark the position of where we are going to drill our holes. And then we'll go ahead and put in our 4 screws to hold the French cleat in place. Then the next piece is we'll cut some 45-degree angle support pieces. These are 4.5 inch on each side with a 45-degree cut. Those will be mounted in place and give the shelf some structural stability. We clamp that in place, and then we'll drill it and put our screws in. Then the process is a rinse and repeat. We'll clamp the bracket, drill it, put in the screws on the other side. I determined that 1 screw on each face of the shelf should be plenty sufficient for the strength that we need for such a small shelf. Now it's time for a test fit. So you can see how it just slides onto the cleat, and it's good and strong. Everything looks good. Now looking at it from the side, you can really see how the French cleat works. Shelf just pops into place and holds it nice and secure. And the spacer on the bottom keeps it nice and level. This is Dave in the shop. I hope you enjoyed this build. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next video.